Hi, everyone, and welcome to Professionals Unplugged. Thank you for joining me for another candid conversation about work. I'm Inga Hebden, your host and owner of Medea International. So, I'm an executive coach and I am on a mission. It's to elevate people's impact and success, especially by helping leaders improve their executive presence. And with me today, I have Erin Spencer. She is the founder and CEO of Edgebrook Lane Consulting, a women owned full cycle human resource consulting business. And I have Jennifer Jones. Jennifer is the founder and owner of two local network in action groups. She's a connector, supporter, and business grower. And last but not least, I've got Andrew Lamp. Andrew believes that there is a better way to scale individuals, teams, and organizations to their potential. He's the founder and owner of Four Leaf Performance, a business coaching organization. So today's topic is, what are the most important skills someone needs to succeed in business? Erin, why don't you kick us off?
One of the first things that came to mind for me is know what you want to do and know how to do it well, and then surround yourself with people that fill voids or gaps that you're unable to fill. So I'll give you a simple answer. For me, I thought in the beginning, you want to wear a million hats. And one of the easiest things I could get some help on was around accounting. And I refused to get some help. So I think just owning that and realizing that you need resources is at any point to succeed in business is always a great thing to be mindful of. And then the other thing that I'll share is I also have really enjoyed surrounding myself with people that are already at the place that I want to be. So what I mean by that is being around other successful business owners in our world, not necessarily that know HR, but they're really great at consulting. So they understand client needs, they know how to project plan, they're active listeners. So I think for me, being around people that had already been successful was a great motivator to have around for us to be able to know where we were going. So those are just two things that come to mind for me.
Sounds like there's a lot more in there, but I leave the floor. I leave the floor to the others because I see them nodding.
I think you can split this up into different ways. First of all, I think you've got to lead with purpose. What is your purpose? What is your driving factor? Then what's the vision? Where are you going? How are you going to get there? Be crystal clear for everybody else. And then, like you said, hire the right people. Get the hell out of the way. You can't be everything, right? You can't be the chief marketing officer, chief HR officer, and the CFO. You've got to bring the right people in with the right skills. And to your point, actively listen. Listen to what the people are talking about. Listen to your customers. Listen to your employees. Inspire based upon purpose, right? Inspire the team. That's what a leadership role is about, is inspiring others to do things. So how do I help you achieve your goals and help them, right? Don't berate them.
So I'm a company of one. I do make my husband do the financial part because I am terrible at that and it would never get done. For me, it's about finding my passion. I really need to do what I love to do. Maybe that's very selfish. If I don't enjoy it, then it's just not going to be done and there's no love in it and there's no passion in it. So I think that was step number one for me, is really enjoy what you're doing because it's hard work. Great if you have a team, but if it all falls on you, it's super juggling act. So I just find your passion and do it. But you're going to get knocked down, get back up and keep going. It will be worth it.
That's so interesting because I went down the Google rabbit hole a little bit before. I'm a confessing Googler, I would say. And some of what you're saying is certainly part of what I found, but some of it is so different. When you start Googling the topic, what do people think are the most important skills for succeeding in business? The passion, the purpose, the finding the right resources doesn't really come up. I mean, so to a certain extent, I find that quite scary because you would think that should be the overriding theme for any kind of career you choose and you're happy with. And what I keep hearing from you, other than obviously the resources, is
Mhm.
relationships and the ability to build those relationships and the networks in order to then really have the resources you can rely on and go back to, the ones who help you. In Jennifer's case, it's your husband who helps with your finances. I've got my husband helping me with some of the communication pieces. We're all lucky that we run our own business and we found our purposes. What is there a difference in skills in order to succeed in the corporate world for the people you speak to?
I think one of the things that I've also realized is that you can't be everything to everyone, and that's okay. So I think, you talk about your purpose and your passion and your team. And I think as we're going into year 4 with this particular business for us, and one of the things that we've figured out is be true to who you are, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, be willing to say no to things to create space for the things that you need to say yes to. And I think that just being comfortable in that is something that is such a rewarding experience. And I think so many of us as humans is you want to please and you want to help and you want to do, and in an effort to do that, you're not necessarily fulfilled or happy sometimes. So I think just getting comfortable in your own shoes and knowing what you're good at and how you can best support is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
The thing that I've seen working with business owners is, first of all, nobody loves your business more than you do. It's your baby. But where I see business owners struggling is they believe their employees should care about that business as much as they do. Unfortunately, that's not reality, right? So that's why we're using a lot of the stuff around the purpose, right? How do you inspire people? How do you understand them at the deepest level to inspire them so that they have the passion in the job, in the role that they've got within the business, so that they've got that passion level that's required within the business?
Passion and loyalty and communication skills and networking skills is one thing, but anything that's missing where we think, well, those are really crucial things people need in order to climb up the ladder.
I think there's a disconnect with regards to how we're moving people up into leadership roles versus, what is their passion? What do they want? Where do they want to go? They kind of get moved up, and sometimes people get lost. I mean, leadership and leading organizations is a skill set in itself, and that some people don't want, and it doesn't fulfill or drive them. But sometimes they get put in that role.
I was put into a management position and I am a terrible manager.
Hmm.
I'm very creative. I can get stuff done. I can communicate well. But when it comes to managing people, and I just want to be everybody's friend. And you can't do that. I'm a terrible manager.
Hmm.
But I just had reached a certain level that's the next step for me, which was not a good move for me or the company. So you're right. Not everybody's meant to be a manager, but that doesn't mean they're not very skilled in other arenas.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Inga, to where you were going too, I think, not to get on the proverbial soapbox, so to speak, but like you don't really know that about yourself until you're thrown in the deep end. And I think that I wish that we would figure out from a corporate standpoint how to allow people to fall safely when they realize that that's not the right role for them. So to Andrew's point, what do? We think they've got a skill set. We put them up there. We think, oh, if you're fortunate enough to go through some kind of training program around leadership and you're given some skills, but you're also not given the space to say, I don't like this. I don't want to do it, because everyone thinks that makes you less than. I mean, that's one of the things that we don't do a good job of. And I really, really hope, especially here in the States, that we get better at that, because you're told to train and go and do it a certain way. And there's not a safe way to try things out to even know if you like them or not. When you don't know that unless you are surrounded by a company, or in some case, managers that support you to fail fast. I mean, Jennifer, to your point, like I was thrown in the deep end of management. I was given a team, didn't know any of them. All of them were 20 years my senior, which was a whole nother complexity to it for me personally. And I loved it. But I didn't know that I was going to love it, but I was scared to death because here I am thinking I'm not worthy. I don't have as much experience as everybody else. Like all these things we don't know until we experience more. And I wish there were just some safer ways corporately that you could allow people to fail fast and it be okay.
To your point, people have got to be allowed to learn. People have got to have that ability to say, I don't know. And I think that's one of the challenges that I saw in the corporate world is when people were promoted or they were put into leadership roles, they were meant to know everything. They were meant to have all of the knowledge. And nobody would ever say, I don't know.
So that sounds like the conversation really needs to change, right? In relation to how do we define success? How do we define career progression? Because right now, career progression predominantly is defined by going up the career ladder and having a management title, and then the amount of people one manages is kind of increasing until you sit at the very top. And to your point, Jennifer, that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants it. So it seems like there's a conversation to be had in terms of how we define it. But then the other conversation, which seems to be missing, is the one of enabling employees to be more open about it on what do they expect, and give them the opportunity to explore and experiment or even to fail, right? And I recently had a conversation about failure, and one of the great examples for growth mindset is famous basketball player Michael Jordan. I'm turning into a basketball fan, I think, and he has such a great growth mindset because he said failure is learning. And if you pick up a new skill, you're automatically gonna fail because that's what you do. You pick up a skill, you learn. And he said something like, I can accept failure, I cannot accept somebody who never tries.
There's no such thing as failure, right? There's a failure not to try. There's a failure not to grow. There's a failure not to ask questions. But if you do those things, then it's not a failure. It's a learning moment. It's an opportunity. It's a growth. I think we got to remove the word failure from our vocabulary, especially in leadership. We set the parameters of what we want to do. What are the risk parameters? And then what do we learn? I mean, just think of R&D. R&D is about failure. But they don't call it failure. They call it about development and learning.
I like the word experiment, and I like to use that with some of my clients as well. In particular, if I want to introduce a little bit more flexibility, I tend to use it as an experiment rather than to learn something new. Because learning sometimes can also be like, oh, this is a chore. That means I don't know everything. And I'm supposed to know everything because I'm at position XYZ. So I cannot admit that I don't know everything. I just find it really interesting because the conversation we're having is so different to the results my my Google rabbit hole provided. Because what we're basically agreeing is have more of a growth mindset and be confident enough to rely on your resources and be confident enough to start changing the conversation rather than all those hard skills of financial management, networking, and data analysis and financial accounting. Those are the kind of things which are coming up.
I think one of the other thoughts I had as we were talking too is employees or people being in the right seats. And I was talking to a client the other day and they were asking a similar question around like, well, what do you think's been a lesson learned or what's made you be successful? And we're actually team happiness before client happiness. It's not that we're not client focused or that we don't care, but so much of it is around, is the team happy? Are they getting what they need? And it's like the whole, if your team is happy and thriving and producing, then more than likely your clients or your service or your product is producing because being relationship focused and responding and giving results, but you're not forcing it because your team is personally fulfilled and finding that passion a little bit about what you all were talking about earlier. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over my corporate career is it was always the client had to come first. Everything the client said was always right. This, that, this, that. And it just, I get it, but it didn't have the desired result, which was we all turned over. Everyone was miserable at their job. We never felt like corporate had our back on anything. And so I've kind of taken a completely different approach that I tell my team all day long, if you don't want to be here, I will hug you, I will love you, and I will gracefully push you out that door and help you find the right next best thing. Because if it's not here, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different, I think we all hold on. Like, stay here, it's got to stay the same. And that's just not, I don't think that's what makes business successful.
Take some guts, though, and a huge amount of self-awareness. So basically, I want to compliment you, Erin, because what you're saying and the way you lay it out is absolutely amazing. And I wish everybody would do that, because you're basically taking a step back. You're putting other people up front and their fulfillment and their happiness, and you support them no matter what, whether or not they benefit your business or they're happy in that business. Because my assumption is, because if they're not happy and you cling on to them, ultimately that'll harm your business, right?
Correct. And to that point as well, I think one of the things, I've been in the world where it's customer first. I still believe customers are very, very important, as we should, because we all own businesses. But the way we take it now is that we actually know their purpose better than they know themselves. So we actually do use Simon Sinek, right? So we know their why, their how, and their what. We know everything about them. We know how to communicate them through DISC. So every client that works with us and every team member, everybody knows everything about them, because they know their why and the what, the how and the what of their coach. They know the why and the how and the what of the team and the individual that they're working with. So we actually know them at the deepest level. And this is how we get the best out of them, because we actually know them better than themselves. So we're tailing and driving them with their purpose in mind, with how they want to deliver and what their promise is. And understanding that, man, it just takes off. I mean, the sky's the limit. As I say, when I sit down and do it with them first, I'm probably going to know you better than your mother does. And they go, no, you won't. And at the end of it, it's like, yes, you do. So, so from a business point of view, you know what your customers want. You know how they drive. You know how they operate. You work with them through that, and business becomes easy.
It's been a very interesting conversation. It kind of switched to how we started. I love how that works. I think this is very interesting because, as speaking from a non-manager who still was successful, we really do need to change that conversation. But it's a long road to do that. But it's great to have this conversation. The more we talk about it, the better it'll get.
On that note, great segue. Thank you very much for having this conversation with me. And I absolutely with you there, Jennifer. I love how the conversation turned into something different about the need of having a different type of conversation with corporate and the people involved. One of the reasons why I put that on my mission, one leader at a time. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode on Professionals Unplugged.